If you think that I've just been sitting around twiddling my thumbs, you'd be wrong. In fact, I've been working with traders to upgrade the markets, collaborating with builders to upgrade existing and add additional monuments to the town, which unfortunately has meant that some villages have needed to be displaced. The results are also in for the naming of Newtown, and we officially gain in renown. This is Foundation, and I am Lord Bara. And today in Newtown we go from a sleepy little hamlet nestled in the elbow of a river, overlooked by civilization, to a market town that has aspirations. So I welcome you to join me and engage as we continue this journey together and raise up out of the very earth itself a worthy fortified town. Let's start here though, shall we? I would like to thank all of the community, especially those who engaged with the poll to name Newtown and give it a proper title. As you can see, the results are fairly unanimous. In fact, they have also gone higher than this, but those results only further compounded the decision. I really am personally humbled that so many people took the effort. I know it's only a moment, but it's your moment to take the interest enough and make that decision. They were your options as well. None of them actually came from me, but I'm still surprised to see that so many people took any interest. So from this day forth, Newtown will now be known as Capybara, the borough of Cappy. Thank you all, thank you. And with that done, let's crack on, shall we? And I'll explain to you what the plans are for this day in Capybara. There are 3 things that I want to do, and I'll show them in order, but the first thing that I want to do is I want to plan the overall perimeter, the structure of the town layout. We own an enormous amount of territory at this point, and the enclosure that you see here is nothing more than a hamlet. And although I'm going to respect this, I'm also going to expand the amount of enclosure that the town will ultimately have. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to reorganize the town center. Now, I'm going to use that word a little bit loosely here because it's not actually the center of town. This is just the initial market area. Because I'd like this town to be much larger in scale, there will inevitably be multiple market locations, 2 to 3 I would think. And the one that exists right now is not central at all, so calling it a market center is a bit disingenuous. And the last thing that I'm going to do is add a bailiff office, not just a bailiff, but also a tavern and a proper patrol house, not just a random tower. And those are the plans, so let's get on with the first part, shall we? Let's start actually planning. I'm going to run this at some additional speed because I actually spent a long time planning and thinking about this, and I don't want to bore you with how long it actually took, but what I'm going to do is just explain the lines that I'm drawing down that you can see. Using the Forbidden Path brush, I'm drawing out the entire perimeter that the town will eventually take. That is where the village walls will be, and I don't want to have any town infrastructure or any houses that are upgraded that are side of that wall that will eventually take the place of where the red lines are. The orange lines, which is actually the hunting brush, is a guide for me where I imagine the main roads of the town will be. Some of these are clearly outside of what will be the city walls. The city wall will also be used as a divider to separate the industrial area from the larger part of the town. And in that industrial area, you're going to find stores and stocks of valuable materials and goods that would need to be protected. Some of the main roads in orange will have spurs that come off that go into other smaller roads, but because of the way Foundation works, the villagers themselves will create many of those paths, so I don't need to worry about that too much. And that is what I think will lend to more realism. If I don't plan it down to that degree, I can do some broad strokes, do the main roads, and let the game figure out the rest for me, hopefully. So now that I've figured out what I want the actual perimeter to be, I can go ahead and start actually putting down the walls themselves. Word of warning here, watch out when you do this. Make sure that you put your walls down, your new walls down first if you've already built existing walls. Build them before you destroy the old walls. Reason being, the way that the game mechanics work now, any upgraded houses that are inside existing walls will instantly lose their privilege to be upgraded to that whatever upgrade that they are, and they'll start all downgrading, and you'll lose a huge amount of living space. Yes, learn from me, learn from my mistakes. With the outer perimeter now under construction, I can turn my attention to housing. For those of you who are not familiar with how housing works, let me just briefly explain that. Again, the orange line represents the roads where the villagers will walk. Because I'm quite particular about how I like the roads to be built, I'm drawing a red no-go area along the edge of the roads in order to limit where the villagers will create paths in order to get to these housing areas. So I'll just basically draw a red no-go box and then poke a hole in it, and then the villagers, when they're building it and traveling to and fro, they can only enter and exit through that one little gap. And that gives you a nice, it gives you control over where the pathing is, and it also gives it a nice feel that it's more planned than and slightly less chaotic. And because I've moved some of the houses and expanded the area over the side there, I'm also going to expand the amount of space that the church has. And I contemplated just moving the church walls for way longer than you're seeing here. Way longer than any normal person should. But in the end, I decided that I would also move the church into the center of that plot. And yet, despite that, I'm still not comfortable with where the church is located. And it's because it's not central. It doesn't have to be. There's no rule that says the church has to be in the center of your town. And I'll probably end up leaving it there just to prove to myself that I'm not OCD about it. So let me just forget about it and then move or justify some of the other production buildings along the roads to make it look more cohesive. So just click on the buildings, hit edit, double click on the buildings again for a second time, and then you'll get the widgets so that you can move them around freely. And just like that, I've created a little road that runs down the middle of these two, I would call them housing plots. Anyway, let's move on and design the manor house. This is going to be bailiff office and some treasury as well. Nothing too fancy going on here. I just want to make use of some of the additional parts that I've unlocked to frame out the corner of the town and really start to create the structure of the market. I think it's quite easy to make things look really nice with these new assets. They all look so good anyway. But with that being done, I'll move on and just start planning out the remainder of the market square. My idea is that it's an L shape that terminates with the church, and on the other end it's an entrance, a large gatehouse. There'll actually be multiple entrance and exits, but that's the overall feel of it. And I think that lends itself really nicely to have a tavern that's situated right on the internal corner. So it'll occupy the center of the market, which means that it will be a major focal point in this market square, which means that while I'll be planning out a lot of it or some of it now, I will continue to develop the tavern and make it a real feature. So I'm going to need a name for that. Feel free to sound off in the comments and be as clever or as quirky as you like. Sorry, I had to skip ahead a little bit there. I couldn't quite figure out where I wanted the tailor and the weaver to be, but I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm just going to carry on and I'll figure it out once I've built the tavern. In the end, it achieves what I wanted it to do. It's sitting on that internal corner of the L shape of the market square. It also has all of the functions that I can currently have with it at the moment. So it's got a berry brewer and it's got a service counter. I'll need to build another berry picker in order to feed that, but I think it looks quite nice there on the corner, and because it ends quite abruptly on the end there, which is fine, but it gives me the opportunity to continue to develop it into a larger structure later on and get it to finish up next to the church. I think would be quite nice. I'm not going to put the ghost plans in for that now. I could do, but I'm going to leave it as it is, just in case I decide to build it by accident and forget that I don't have the budget for it with the way the town's economy currently is. For the time being as well, the tailor and the weaver will bookend it. It should come as no surprise that during that process, because I've demolished and messed around with the housing situation behind the market so much, I've ended up losing some of the villagers, so I'm just going to restock and refill some of those missing serf jobs that are available. Probably need to do that a few times. It was inevitable. And as you can see, while I was planning that, I built up a supply of building materials, so I'm now able to just go ahead and start building these monuments and bring these plans to life. There we go, simple as that. Now let's move on to placing the new market stalls. I actually had a bug when I was doing this. For some reason I wasn't able to edit the existing market stalls that were there. I think it had something to do with an update that happened, but I didn't even notice. So what I ended up doing was just deleting the existing market stalls and then rebuilding a brand new market. It was fine. I was reluctant to do it initially because I don't like having the villagers going without food for a period of time, but in reality it was only a few minutes for them, so they were able to cope. If you're unfamiliar with my style, I like to have the market stalls kind of scattered throughout the market square. Sometimes I will place them back to back and create like a square of stalls, but usually I like to have the square emptied in the middle for decorations and the stalls justified up against the buildings. I feel it gives a more natural look. It's entirely my creative discretion. If you've reached cloth making in the game, don't forget to put covers on the stalls. It's not just aesthetic, it also increases the capacity that the stalls can hold, which gets rid of that pesky not enough food pop-up that you get. And finally, I'm going to move on to the gatehouse. This is going to be the start of the gatehouse, not the finished article, but I don't enjoy having a random tower splattered around. I know it serves a specific game function now, but it still annoys me. It kind of feels awkward. So this is going to be an actual gatehouse that will end up being a little compound unto itself. Initially though, I'm just going to start the framing. I'll come back to this in a later build. We've now officially reached town status. And that's all I've got time for. So I'll just say, if you have been, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. This has been Foundation. I've been Lord Bara. If you're still here, leave a like. Until next time.